It's dumbfounding to me. Let me get to my guest right now. That is Alex Smith. Alex is the executive director of America Rising. And Alex, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me on.
It's great to have you here. I know that America Rising is a political action committee, correct?
Yes. So we are the Republican Party's premier opposition research firm. We watch the Democrats all day, so you don't have to. And special thanks to our staffers who have to listen to clips of Elizabeth Warren all day.
Yeah, I'll bet you do. So, you might have heard a little bit of the tail end of my thoughts on this speech last night. I thought the president hit it out of the park. I guess people feel that in order to be bipartisan, you shouldn't tell the truth. But he told the truth, and a lot of the people on the left don't like to hear the truth.
I thought he did a great job. I completely agree. And the line that really sticks out to me as a line that I think will resonate with a majority of Americans and is indeed reflected in the polls that show that a vast majority of independent voters and all voters approved of the speech, is when he was talking about immigration. And he said something very basic. He said something that we learn in elementary school. He said, in forming this deal, I didn't get everything I wanted. The other side isn't going to get everything that they wanted, but this is the best deal for America to move forward. This, the idea of compromise, this is something that Americans deal with in our everyday lives. We're able to make concessions and compromises all the time on any number of issues. So when we send these guys to Washington and they're locking horns over every single thing, and the Democrats can't, come to the table or get behind any major piece of legislation, it makes them look ridiculous.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, I was thinking about that last night. The president spoke about how well the economy's going. Democrats didn't want to clap for that. He spoke about the unemployment rate, which is low, whether you give him credit for it or as they want Barack Obama partial credit for it, it's still low. It's still a fact. I mean, he wasn't saying anything that wasn't true. Right. And yet he still couldn't, this effort to resist anything that he does or says kept them in their seats last night.
It's funny that you say the word resist, because America Rising went back through President Obama's State of the Union. And there was one State of the Union in particular where he said that we can't just be, we can't be a country where one side just stands up and says no to everything. Yet if you listen to the rhetoric of the Democrats and if you watch how they acted last night, their response to everything has been this knee-jerk partisan reaction. It seems to be that whenever something comes up, they don't think for themselves. They're immediately looking to see how Chuck Schumer thinks about something, or what Nancy Pelosi thinks about something, or even what these 2020 presidential candidates are going to think about something. And, they're really not thinking and acting on behalf of the constituents who put them there.
What do you think the president made? I mean, obviously, I listened to the polls that you did. Even CBS News read a poll that showed an overwhelming number of people thought the speech was good, even among, a lot among Republicans, but even among independents. I think it was like 72% of independents liked the speech. Mm-hmm. He talked a lot about this immigration debate and trying to get things to move forward. Particularly the fact that he's giving up something he didn't want to give up. Now he's expecting the Democrats to come to the table and do the same thing. And I'm a personal believer that on that February 8th, whatever night that is, we're going to come down to a government shutdown again, because the Democrats on the left are not going to ever agree to some of these limits to the immigration laws.
And it's funny because on both protecting the Dreamers and also promoting strong border security, those are two issues that are no-brainers to the American people. The majority of them, vast majority of them, huge number of independents, will be very important in the upcoming 2018 midterms. These are easy issues to understand and to agree with. And so the fact that the president has extended a hand on DACA, and what he's asking for in exchange is a common sense solution to protect our country. It really, I think it speaks to how radical the left has become, particularly when they're willing to tie this debate, which 2 weeks ago was, it still is, we still have a month until DACA runs out. But 2 weeks ago, they were attaching it to a government shutdown, which meant that our law enforcement officers, our military, and other key personnel went without pay over that weekend. Potentially could have gone a lot longer. So they're really they're in a pretty dark place right now.
They really are. We're talking to Alex Smith from America Rising. So here's my thought on this. I wonder. And I can honestly say that I don't know any of these people who are these so-called dreamers. I don't know any of them individually. But I wonder if they're going to start to pick up on the fact that there's a faction in the Democratic Party that will give Donald Trump, that will not agree to give Donald Trump a win on DACA, period. They'd rather there not be a deal than Donald Trump get credit for it before the next election cycle. And I think these dreamers don't realize it yet. Maybe some of them do because they were picketing outside Chuck Schumer's house the other day. But the vast majority of them don't realize they're just a pawn in all this. And the Democrats are perfectly willing to let them flap in the wind to turn them into a political cause for November.
Well, sure. And permit me to go back with a little bit of history here. This really all started when President Obama issued an executive order on this. We all know that President Obama was a big fan of these executive orders.
Right.
And what that effectively did is it really did leave, it put these people in a precarious position. So the dreamers of the immigrants who are in this country, through no fault of their own, their parents brought them here when they were very small. A lot of them only speak English. They don't know the country that their parents came from. And by any account, they're Americans, just like you and me. What President Obama did, though, is he tied their status to an executive order. Well, that means that it's at the whims of whoever is in the presidency.
Right.
And so what President Trump did, which I thought was smart and I thought was actually more protective for this group of people, is he said, I'm going to kick this to Congress, because this needs a legislative solution. That was the proper way to go about it from a constitutional perspective, and it was the humane way to go about it in terms of not allowing these people to live on the edge, a constant fear of what their status is and will that change with the next president. And so I think that particularly now that he's put this pathway to citizenship on the table, and all he's asking for is some border protections to make sure it doesn't happen again. The fact that the Democrats can't cross the line on that, I think you're right. I think that will become apparent to these individuals, that they've really just been used as a pawn in the Democrats' game here. Well,
I hope they realize it because, quite frankly, if the president had not ended this with a little bit of a warning period to give Congress time to react, what would have happened next is the court challenge would have gone through. The courts would have declared the program unconstitutional, and then it would have ended immediately. So they would have lost their protection. So he doesn't get enough credit for this on either end of the equation. Listen, Alex Smith with America Rising, I appreciate your time. People can go to americarisingpac.org to read more about some of the issues that they're researching over there. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Yeah, I wanted to get Alex's take on all this. Hey, I got time for a phone call. Let me get to Steve.